Welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today. So tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we are going to be covering the latest developer update for Sea of Thieves that just came out from Drew. There's a lot to go over with that, as well as some of the issues going on with Last Ship Standing and a missing emote. All that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. But before we get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They're the ones that are sticking it out to the very last episode. They are hanging in here with me, and I have not changed the list of names. So everyone that has gone ahead and canceled their Patreon, I appreciate the support for as long as you have. And just a reminder that we've got 2 more episodes. So I am going to be closing things out after that. Because of Patreon being a way that people actually get the actual episodes, I am having to keep it open till the last episode. Kind of a weird thing that I didn't take into account when I was doing this. But I did want to shout out the names because I do appreciate everyone that has supported. So thanks to A-Chick, L-Cute, Captain Nooch. I don't know where Luch came in. Captain Nooch, Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Chateau Noof, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, Crazy Frog, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Godhammer 6, Jeff H, Carl Embo of Embo Family Gaming, Elvin Vramir, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Ors, Xbox Mike 29, Rabid Raccoon, Blue Crab, Real Big Tuna, Reap's Revenge, Ribloid, Rust Belt Kid, Scamelt 666, Tales of the Sea, The Demon Jester, Tommy D, TN Professor, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Heger Owl, Captain Duckweed, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Thor Von Blitz, Luke Lore the Insipid Ghost, and Wow. Thank you all so much for your love and your support. It really does mean the world to me, and I really do appreciate everyone that has, even the folks that are no longer gold hoarders. It's been a wild ride, and I definitely appreciate it. And shout out to Chateau Noof, who has been silently supporting since the day the Patreon started. It's really appreciate them, just constantly there. I genuinely hope that they didn't turn it on and just forgot about it. I hope they're still enjoying the content that's coming out. But thank you, Chateau. I appreciate it. And with that, pirates, let's get into it. First on today's docket, let's talk about some of the stuff that you hopefully were able to actually get. There were Twitch drops that went on this last weekend. And they were pretty good. I was pretty happy with them. This week also included the Gilded Phoenix Captain's Table and Chair. So hopefully you were able to log in to watch some hours of streamers. Anyone, it didn't matter. You could watch anyone and get those rewards. And as always, hopefully you were able to get those without any issue. I've been using Better TTV, I think is the extension to be able to claim those. So yeah, that's kind of the stuff that's been going on as far as drops go. Getting into the stuff that Drew talked about, let's talk about the developer update that we got this week. This was, as was expressed, a bumper update to kind of give folks a little bit of idea of what's going on with Sea of Thieves from Drew, and just to address some of the things that they are going into in the coming months, which I appreciate because a little bit of communication here. And I think this video was actually one of the few times where I was actually very happy with what I heard. I obviously have some lingering concerns and some stuff that I think we'll have to see because I do think that there's definitely points where the team will always say that they're working on something and that something's going well, but whether or not that actually pans out, we will have to see. But it was nice to kind of have Drew come out and actually kind of address some of the things. So with season 20, they wanted to kick things off and say that they have been seeing a lot of folks dive into custom Cs, which I think, considering season 20 only has custom Cs, that was fair to say that was going to be the case. I know that a lot of content creators have been using it to do stuff that they wanted, and they called those out. So it was nice to kind of hear them address the content creators who are working to make content for Sea of Thieves in custom seas. I myself definitely noticed that there were a lot of things that still need to be added to have this actually be like a really good kind of custom seas experience. Especially just like the simple thing that was brought up by Drew that they're going to work on, which is invisibility and God mode for hosts. That was something that, like, if you've been working your way through the deeds for season 20 and actually trying to get some of those knocked out so you can get the reputation earned in there, it is very hard to try and set things up without being able to just get murdered. And if you're spawning a bunch of enemies to try and kill them with kegs or something like that, you run the risk of getting murdered unless you're flying. And having invisibility, having God mode for hosts would be a good way to do that. And it also kind of helps ensure too that they have the ability to kind of stay out of the limelight, so they're not confusing people during like battle or something like that. It's like, oh, that's one of the hosts, you know. So invisibility is one of those things that would help out with that, as well as God mode. So they're also looking to add ways to restock ships faster, to be able to clear up treasure faster, and to be able to spawn in rowboats. But for those three things, they don't really have a date in mind on when those are going to be coming. They're also looking to add in controls, things like skipping the ferry of the damned, and to be able to configure the weapon damage for weapons, which to me personally, I think is going to be one that a lot of people are going to look forward to if they are going to be doing competitions. Because I imagine what they will most likely do is see if they can change the damage on, say, like the blunderbuss, make it a one hit kill. But that's up to Rare whether or not they're going to allow you to be able to revert it back to the original, or just change the spread, or how they want to, how much control they're going to give over stuff like that. Obviously, the more control you have, the better things will be. But the community is trying to do stuff that Rare is not doing right now. Ironically enough, they're trying to recreate, you know, like they called out someone, a slimy pigeon. I think it's slimy pigeon, trying to recreate Arena in custom seas, which is wild. That they're trying to recreate a mode that Rare deemed unworthy due to population and continued investment from the dev studio that was working on that. And here it is. They're letting the community actually do it. So, you know, something they can do at that point. The other thing was role playing on Port Merrick, by having lots of people kind of have roles and using proximity chat restrictions to kind of have like conversations with people, to have them like, you know, be vendors or have like things that they want to, you know, NPC kind of things, and make it look like Port Merrick is actually a lively city, which I think is very interesting, especially given certain things that have been going on in with other pirate games lately. I think that's a very interesting thing that Rare should probably look at and see as the, hey, this is your test bed to see what people want. If people are investing this much time in custom seas, might want to consider putting that kind of a thing in Sea of Thieves in general. You're basically being fed ideas, immediately fed ideas on what the community wants and what they're trying to do with the sandbox if they had control. So if things like that go well, if things like that are popular, that right there would be my content roadmap. I would be looking at exactly what content creators are doing, what does really well, what people love, and seeing why that isn't in Sea of Thieves already. It's funny because I always have my go-tos, you know, and I'll not use World of Warcraft in this case. I will use Cyberpunk as the example here. Cyberpunk 2077 was a game that I think is honestly one of the best RPGs that I've ever played. Granted, I haven't played a whole lot of them, but Cyberpunk definitely like hit the right niches for me. But when that game launched, it was a terrible game. It was absolutely in the worst condition. The only good experience you could really have with it was if you were playing on a BV PC, next gen consoles like that. That was your hope of being able to have an enjoyable experience. Well, down the line, what ended up happening was a lot of the mods for the game were rebalancing things, were fixing issues, were adding things to the game that you couldn't do or that the devs weren't doing. And what ended up happening is that these mods became so popular and people were using them to fix the game in a way that would actually be more enjoyable, is that CD Projekt Red actually ended up hiring on a lot of the main modders to join the team to then help implement the mods that they had created into the base game, so that like when Cyberpunk 2.0 launched, it had many of the quality of life features. It had a completely rebalanced talent system and perk tree with the skills that you had. There was a lot more viability in the ways that you could play and actually go around and do stuff. And that was something that was, you know, we wouldn't have an amazing experience with Cyberpunk that we have now if it wasn't for the community that rallied behind the inception of the game, the creation of it, and had the open availability to mod it the way that you can with single player games like that on PC. Sea of Thieves has effectively done this with custom seas, and I think that this is their opportunity to take a look and see. And shout out to Hidden. Fern wants something. Hold on. Okay, she needed love and attention. I don't know what to do. I put her on the chair. I petted her for a while, so she should be good. But going back to what I was saying, Rare has a really interesting opportunity right now to actually take some of the things that the community is doing with the custom seas and try to implement those into the actual game so that everyone gets the benefit of cool stuff like Arena being in Sea of Thieves in another mode. And it's not just Last Ship Standing, which ironically they're bolstering the way that they had Arena for. But it's just instead of a full-time commitment now, it's like a monthly weekend that they have to do. So I guess that was the trade-off. Arena had to die so Hourglass could be born, and out of Hourglass rose Arena 3.0 in Last Ship Standing, and we got the battle royale that everyone wanted Sea of Thieves to be. It still has a lot of issues though. In fact, thankfully there was a really bad bug that got hotfixed this one that actually was causing ships who had won to automatically be destroyed before they leave the Sea of the Damned. So that was fun. That was cool. That was one of those, like, who knows why the changes that they made from the last time Last Ship Standing was in progress ended up causing this to, like, how do you go from we're reverting the change to battle bounds so that they were the way they were back in the first time because people liked them. Spoilers, everyone was fine with it. Nobody was complaining about the times. You guys said that it wasn't the way you intended it, but if everyone's happy, don't touch it. Just leave that be. Just let people enjoy it. People are happy. Stop coming in and asking them why they're enjoying something. But as a result of the changes to Last Ship Standing from the last time it was out, there was a bug that was causing ships to explode when they finished winning Last Ship Standing. So thankfully the developers, I don't know who it was, but boy, they had to spend a good chunk of their weekend not doing something fun. And thankfully they got a hotfix out on what's it called? Friday the 3rd. I've been my head down in a review, so I have not had any time to play any Sea of Thieves at all this week. I've been working on a Tomb Raider impressions and something else I can't talk about because of an NDA. But I'm glad they got the rollout for that. That's nice. But yeah, that was oddly enough going from the 3rd to the 10th. The Last Ship Standing is still going to be going on for an entire week. You can do that. There's actually been some really nice changes to Last Ship Standing. I have not seen numbers on this. I did not see anyone post anything on the forums. There could very well be posts on the forums breaking down the changes to Allegiance. But funny enough, one of the issues that I had with the way that they changed Allegiance from the last patch, actually, I'm going to go double check and see, because I think there might actually be patch notes. So let me pause this. Let me go see if I can research something real quick. And if it works, I'll have actual numbers for you. If they haven't posted anything in the patch notes, then whoever's doing the patch notes once again will have failed to address some of the things that have actually been changed. So let me check on that.
Those aren't pieces of 8. They're just pieces of junk.
Aye, the original plan was to use 9 pieces of 8 to bind Calypso, but when the first court met, the brethren were to a 1. Skint broke.
Well, I hoped. They did not post any of the actual like allegiance percentages for what you can earn, but according to Drew, the allegiance for mid placement finishes in Last Ship Standing have been increased, making sure that that you're hopefully getting a little bit closer to an actual loss as opposed to what it was before, which was less than a loss. So I again, unfortunately, have been too busy to be able to jump into Sea of Thieves this week. So I, at this point, have no clue what that is, though I have not really enjoyed going back into, like Last Ship Standing is actually fun. I just have not wanted to jump in and do that because I am not in a space where I have time to jump in to actually work on that. So hopefully you guys have some experience in that and can actually say whether or not it's been good. And if it has been good, that's great. I'm glad. That's exactly what we wanted. But that, unfortunately, I have not gotten to actually address. One of the things that Drew said that they were able to address was the issue with matchmaking taking too long. And unfortunately, there was a tweet that came out from Boxy Fresh who said that he was stuck in queue for 2 hours, which seems insane that you would even sit around for 2 hours before getting a match, and instead of, maybe waiting like 15-20 minutes and then dipping out to see if there's like, obviously there's matches going on. So part of me wonders if this is either an issue with the game and the matchmaking system that they changed, or if this is an MMR or like matchmaking rating for those who are not used to MMR, that is causing an issue with when you are so high up in the matchmaking ranking that you have fewer people at your skill level to compete against. And instead of forcing you into lobbies with lower skilled players based on MMR, you are then stuck in a queue until more people of your skill level actually queue up. This is something that happens with pretty much any multiplayer game, any competitive multiplayer game that has an MMR based system, even if it's an invisible MMR system and you don't see what your ranking is, but it is being used. The higher up you go, the longer your wait time is, because they are effectively keeping you out of lower skilled lobbies, because what's the point of MMR if you're not going to keep players in competition with players that are of the same skill level? So with Boxy playing for as long as he does, being as good as he is, sometimes I wonder if maybe it's just MMR mixed with an issue with the hotfixes or the matchmaking that they did, the tweaks that they did, that causes someone like that to have to be in queue for a long time. And unfortunately, it's anecdotal at this point, so there's not really a whole lot of like data to support one way or the other. So the one thing that they did say based on what's going on with Last Ship Standing is they are going to be working on a few things for the future. They are working on a controller only mode for matchmaking for Last Ship Standing. So for those of you on console who only want to fight against console or controller players or console players, they are working to integrate the controller only into matchmaking for Last Ship Standing as well. They are going to be working on increasing the opportunity for you to earn doubloons. So your first win should award 200 doubloons. Your first top 3 finish should give you 100 doubloons. And that's on top of the boosted allegiance for those mid placement finishes as well too. So they did say that the bounds, the play bounds that you're going to be sailing around in are going to reduce in set stages, and then at the 25 mark, those will then start to close to that final circle, which will help kind of keep things a little more hectic, which I think is kind of the nice thing about having a battle royale mode is the battle bounds change and they shrink quickly, and you have to make decisions and you have to make choices that are not necessarily as safe as you want them to be, which puts you at risk, because then that's when you're actually going to have to see like where the skill is versus what you can do at the time, who gets lucky, who doesn't. That all contributes to a fun outcome, because you feel less like it is just who can get a one ball, or who can snipe someone to stop one more bucket than the other person for a win, and tends to force people to make moves that will cause mistakes that then add to the fun in the RNG of like an actual like battle royale. That's part of the fun of battle royales, in my opinion. If you want straight competition, skill versus skill, Counter-Strike, oh gosh, what's the Valorant? I was trying to find out what that word was. Valorant are great games that are purely like skill based kind of ones. Like that is just pure sheer practice. Like StarCraft 2, pure skill involved with that esports. You know, like that is a game that is all about average clicks per minute, average movement per minute, plus like knowing your units and what trumps what health they have, how much damage the other opponent can deal. Like those are all, there's very little RNG with that, which is why where balance patches come in to change up the meta for that kind of stuff. But for Last Ship Standing, the damage is all static. It's all just a matter of like who plays better. And adding a little chaos to that, I think, is always interesting. One thing that is not interesting in this aspect, though, is when you're in Hourglass and an ancient megalodon interrupts your battle. Funny, but probably not enjoyable, which I think they understood. They're also going to be bringing brigs and galleons to Last Ship Standing in the future. But as it is, a lot of stuff is kind of like up in the air about when this stuff is going to actually land. One thing that will be landing in August, though, is the rewards for Last Ship Standing are actually going to be interesting. Better than just gold, better than just allegiance, and better than just doubloons. They're actually going to be adding the Fallen Sea Dog set, which has been in the game for a while, and only available really with just the lantern. And there was one other thing, the jacket. I can't remember how we got the jacket though. Was that part of the DeMarco mystery? The jacket? I can't remember. It's been too long. I know the lantern was when you went to actually go find DeMarco's body on Sea Dog, Sea Dog's Rest. And that was a little too on the nose, if you ask me. But regardless, the Fallen Sea Dog cosmetics, the clothing, weapons, equipment, and ship set are all going to be arriving in August. The only way to actually get these is through wins at Last Ship Standing. That is going to be a 10 grade commendation. You will only be able to progress it by winning, and it will be retroactive. So any wins that you currently have or are getting are all going to contribute to that grade 10 commendations, which will eventually unlock all of the Fallen Sea Dog set, which that is going to be the PvP grind, which is only going to take place in Last Ship Standing, which is going to be that 1 week in a month. And I understand like why they're doing that. I don't mind it. I think it's a good chase. I think it's a good reward system, and it's really going to be dependent on when you're available and when you can actually go to play it. As we've expressed, this is going to be something that is on a static weekend. I'm still not a huge fan of them having it on like the same schedule all the time, because it's going to make it hard for folks that have very rigid schedules, and if it just lands in a bad time for them, then they're always going to be out. But it just kind of depends on like, if that's something that they want to grind, if that's something that they want to do, they will try and find a way to do it, hopefully. But I think that is it as far as Last Ship Standing goes. Still a lot of work to do. Still a lot of issues that they're running into. They have committed to fixing and getting Sloop under control and working fine. before Brig and Galleon get brought into the mix. I think the less variables there are in this instance makes sense. I think that's fair. I think that they are doing themselves a disservice by cutting out, 2/3 of the ship types in this instance and forcing it to be upon solos or duos, not really giving an opportunity for trios or quads to enjoy that mode and just have to live off of Hourglass at this point. But we'll have to see how things go. And I think that at this point, they're doing decent with Last Ship Standing. Obviously, I think the bugs are insane. And I think that the matchmaking for it is going to be a consistent issue for them, especially depending on how the entire season goes. And if people check out of the season at a point and they never come back for Last Ship Standing, that's just going to be fewer people actually playing, right? The next thing that Drew talked about was actually going to be the Season 20 world events. This was talking about the emergent world events and how those have been taken away from the raid tables, how people are liking that. Are people sticking around on servers? I think that is kind of the main question is, are people actually sticking around on servers to actually work on some of these world events? I personally don't know that they are, but again, I haven't gotten a chance to actually play it all this week. So I don't know if folks are. I haven't seen any anecdotal evidence to say that they've been enjoying it. They did address the fact that they think the drop rate for the Chest of Fortune is too low, which, I mean, at this point, like I think that is a very fair statement given some of the numbers that have been leaked by data miners. I think that's one of those things, like, you should probably have this be something that's actually fun to do if you're wanting to show, like, hey, are people enjoying the way that the world events have changed? Well, if there's nothing really to push them to go do it, then you're not really going to get a good data set there. So I very much am curious to know if, like, folks are sticking on the same server and just going from world event to world event. I think when Community Weekend was going, I went and did my one world event to get the Eye of Reach, and that was it. But it was nice to get the loot from there. But the loot isn't anything too special. I mean, like, you're still getting Marauder chests. You're still getting, like, Ashen Marauder chests. The loot pool could definitely do better. I didn't get a Chest of Fortune, or let alone 3 Chest of Fortunes for my world event that I did. So, but yeah, I haven't really heard anyone really happy about that. I did bring up that fact, or at least I brought some thoughts to Drew, because Drew made a post out there about the bumper edition to the dev video to kind of talk about stuff. So finally I was like, you know what, I'm not going to rely on them to listen on the podcast. I'm going to go to Twitter and I'm going to actually, like, tweet at Drew and let him know about some of the ideas that I've been talking about on this show for a while. So I let him know about the different colored indicators for world events for different trade companies to try and, like, facilitate the loot pool for players that want to have those commendation items available to them. With dives, if they wanted to have a dive and just have, like, the indicator be different so that people had more clarity on what was going on. Drew didn't really dig that idea. That was not something that was, like, super interesting to him. I did say that having the original loot pools this season has been great, but I think that there are ways to kind of tweak it to give players more agency. And he says, I don't feel that providing the company only loot pools for an event is the best route to incentivizing players to contest. Lots of thoughts in the world event space right now, though, more to share soon, which I don't disagree with, because I think that, if players wanted to go after those, they would be going after every single one, and they obviously aren't. One of the other things I posted in there was I'd love to know if the Chest of Fortune will be the main carrot on a stick for world events indefinitely. I'm sure that the team could pull some data, but I have to imagine that the number of monthly active users that have completed all of the Chest of Fortune grades is relatively low, because I think there's a lot of casual folks out there. And Drew actually admitted, yes, we know that the Chest of Fortune isn't enough by far to keep world events popping, but they are saying, he's saying that there's more for that in the future as well too. What else did I say? I had something else that I'd gone into as well too. Let me show. Yeah. Okay. I said, in regards to the commendations, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but I'm on the tweet thread, so I'm just going to go through it. One of the ideas that I've been floating around is giving timestamps for commendations, to show a way that you did something back when it was hard before it actually got nerfed, and it would help kind of future-proof adjustments to commendations. The main complaint I see with changing commendations is that people feel cheated out of how hard it was when was to complete before an adjustment comes in. Adding dates to commendation completions, like achievements, would give players proof that they did it before it got nerfed. And Drew said, now that's an interesting idea. To which I have to say, thanks, Drew. I appreciate that. It's something that has been around on World of Warcraft for a long time. I have feats of strength that can not be completed unless you actually do something specific. And that feat of strength is not something that is like always available. So sometimes you have to do it during the time that it's available. And same thing with raids, seasons. Like if you want to complete the hardest difficulty of content during the time that it's fresh, you get an achievement that says, hey, you did that. You can't get that achievement once that season has changed and that content is no longer fresh and there's now better gear out there to make it easier content. So to me, it's just one of those things that I think would be very easy to sit there and say like, hey, I did this achievement. Here's the date that I did it. The update came in this date after I had already completed it. So anyone that got it after this obviously did it when it was easier to do. So simple thing. I don't think that it would be hard to add that kind of checks and balances to commendations. So we'll see. We can already hopefully have something that just kind of makes things easier. But that kind of goes into what Drew was talking about with the commendation changes that are going to be coming in July's update. And this is something I've talked about, so I won't cover it too much. But merchant cargo crates commendations have been changed so that there's now on-demand items that you can pick up from the Merchant Alliance representatives to be able to turn those in, and then you'll be able to complete those with a lot easier than trying to find monthly active users, or no, sorry, not monthly active users, messages in a bottle that are green that you can then actually get. Which, by the way, if you guys are hunting for these before they actually get completed, green messages in a bottle, the ones that have the cargo crate voyages in them, are best found in my experience in Flotsam. Go sailing around, find barrels of plenty that show up floating around in the ocean. Generally, there's a message in a bottle in there. It's either going to be an Order of Souls, or it's going to be a dig for kingly loot, or it's going to be a Merchant Alliance, in which case it'll probably have either crates that you have to pick up, or you have to get one of the cannonball wood or fruit crates to deliver. So good luck out there. That's going to be your best bet. I think I'm down to my last fruit crate, but they are going to be changing those in the July update. They're also going to be changing the commendations for miles sailed. So the way you can actually complete those, as opposed to having a voyage down, is now with an emissary flag, something I talked about in the Gold Hoarder episode. Nice to see that. Faction battle streaks are no longer required to be cashed in. Those can now progress while getting wins on a streak. So you no longer have to drop your streak to be able to get credit for that commendation. Nice change there. Good quality of life. And then the Burning Blade commendations have been reduced. I have not seen the numbers on that yet, but that is definitely one of those ones where it's just it's a needlessly difficult commendation set to do, given the frequency of burning blades out there. And unless you're purposefully diving or spawning on servers and looking for a burning blade that's active, You really have to be very targeted about those commendations, which arguably you have to be with other ones as well too, like fishing, cargo crates, things like that. But when it comes down to a world event, that is a much more RNG based type of thing that I think, honestly, that if they're seeing lesser engagement with those commendations compared to all the other commendations that are available in the game to complete, chances are it means that they were tuned too high when they came out and not enough people engaged with that season to do those commendations with the Burning Blade or had the opportunity to get those done. And as a result, they've kind of turned into dead commendations, much like the giving gifts and turning in gifts turned into a dead commendation when those were not readily available outside of the holiday, the Christmas holiday, where those were going to be a lot more plentiful. And obviously when they took out the ways to get those, I think the only way to get them after a certain amount of time was to actually like go do skeleton forts. And most recently Burning Blades. Those were like the best ways you could actually get those. And now you have the Reaper fortresses. So those are a lot easier to get. You have the Devil's Roar fortresses that you can get those from there as well too. Plenty more ways to actually get gifts. So it's a lot easier, making that commendation now easier to get because it's no longer a dead commendation. And for those of you that were upset because it took so much work to actually get it done after the Christmas holiday, should have gotten it done during the Christmas holiday. But no, that's not the way to go about it. That's not the best approach. You shouldn't be telling someone, oh, well, you should have done it when you should have done this. It's like, no, it should be designed better so that it's more accessible all the time. If that's something that has to get done outside of just a regular time frame. If it's something like Last Ship Standing, well, Last Ship Standing only happens 1 week out of the month or one weekend out of the month. Those commendations are going to be locked to when you can actually access that content. Sea of Thieves content outside of that is available all the time. So if you're going to make it available all the time, then there should be a decent balance of how to actually acquire those kind of items. There's already a good subset of items in the game that are still available, but there are only very particular ways to actually acquire those items. So if you're out there trying to find like specific skulls, good luck, because some of those skulls are very hard to get these days. And unfortunately, there's not really a good recourse for that. Not that there necessarily has to be, because there's nothing in the game as far as a commendation that is very particular about certain skulls. Certain skulls, yes, there are like, devil, what's it called? The Ashen Lord skulls. You've got the flame skulls. There are skulls that are particular that you have to turn in. A vast majority of them are not. No one's looking at loot from the beginning of the game and saying like, oh, I need to make sure I have access to those items. It's not really necessary, but some of these commendations are very particular. And if they're dead commendations because there's not an easy way to access the content in the game, because Rare just keeps adding more and more treasure to the game and fewer ways to access that content, then, you got to take a look at that. You got to go back and say like, are these dead commendations? But yeah, so I'm glad that they're doing this. I'm glad that they're having a way to do it. I don't think every commendation that gets nerfed needs to have a cosmetic associated with it to praise the people who did it early. I think that's asking too much of an already stretched thin studio at this point. If they can't have updates coming out on a regular basis to adventure and not be buggy, we got to lower the bar here. We got to make it a little bit easier for them to clear that bar, that hurdle. We don't want that hurdle to fall, because that's just asking for disappointment. So those are some of the main things that we wanted to talk about with the update. Oh, there was one thing at the very end, and this is going to please take this with a grain of salt. But Drew did say that when you purchase supplies from a Merchant Alliance representative on an outpost, you will get your supplies. I will tell you right now, folks, do not expect that to happen. I think it's fantastic that they want it to happen. I think it's a great goal. I do not know that I have enough faith in the QA team to be able to point to it and say, yes, I'm sure that Drew said this was going to happen. Surely they can't be wrong about this. Surely this won't come back to bite them. So I will just say be patient and don't expect that to work all the time. What does work all the time is when you do buy crates from the Merchant Alliance and they don't give them to you. If you go buy a harpoon and then you throw the harpoon at the Merchant Alliance representative's head, that is enough warning for them to hand over that crate. And if that really, really does not work, try buying more harpoons. And if for some reason, this is crazy, if for some reason the Hunter's Call representative does not give you those harpoons, knowing your intent, I would say just go pass some money off to someone else and come back and have that cooling off period. You know, it's very common with weapons to have a cool off period. You have to wait before you can go and get them. Sometimes going out and doing some retail therapy over at the oh gosh, what is she called? The person who's the shipwright. Oh my God. Sometimes going over to the shipwright and spending some money on captaincy has enough retail therapy to trigger that cool off period before the Hunter's Call will give you weapons to then use to threaten the Merchant Alliance to be able to give you those crates. So it's a bit of a workaround. It's a bit of a, you know, like it's not broke. It's not a blocker, but it's definitely major enough that I think has to stay addressed, because that is frustrating and there's no recourse for people that don't know, which is why this little PSA is going out. It's a pirate service announcement as always. But hopefully you guys are not going to have problems with that. And that's coming in the July update as well. So we'll see. Don't be surprised if you see some darts in the sand next to the dartboard though. That's all I'm saying. Trying to take a look real quick and see if there's anything else that I wanted to make sure you guys had a heads up about. There's a new Sea of Thieves shot contest called Movie Moments. That is where you are basically recreating a cinematic scene within Sea of Thieves from your most favorite film or whatever film that you think works out best. In which case I will say that's going till the 15th. So I will say, go try out Custom Seas. If you've been watching a movie and you think you can recreate something, I would say go out and try creating something in Custom Seas and seeing like if you can make something work out there, because I think it's definitely possible. Also, if you guys watched the latest update video from not the most recent one with Drew, but the content news update video that John always puts out. If you saw the X25, what's it called? The X25 emote, there was an issue with that. They basically said, please note that the X25 emote that was highlighted in the most recent episode of Sea of Thieves News has been postponed and will be available at a later date. We will share an update when a new window for claiming this in-game benefit has been decided. Yeah. So, you know, there was a lot of stuff came out on the 3rd. Hotfixes, notifications, stuff like that going on. Basically them saying like there's issues, you know, like we are aware. So I wish I could say that we've gotten an update without a we are aware post, but that is not the case. And hopefully the July update will be an update where we don't have to sit there and say, when is Rare going to put out their we are aware update? But this last dev update video, I will say I've been pretty happy with. I think that they did a good job with it. I think that so far, for all intents and purposes, a lot of stuff that they're saying are good. They're good things. I think that that's fantastic. I just don't know that I can trust that the update will actually land without issues. Because as we saw with the hotfix that came out, they forgot to turn off Fleet of Fortune, which was supposed to be done at the end of season 19. It had been available during season 20 for quite some time. And that's just the like I don't know, man. Like, who's in charge over there? What's going on? Who forgot to turn off the Fleet of Fortune? That seems like an easy thing. Set date for the, well, no, I can't say that because they've definitely set dates for events that have been cut short because of delays, and actually ones that have been pushed out longer because they were anticipating it being a delay. So I can't really even say that they have to know for sure like when they're going to be turning it off, because sometimes they have to delay stuff. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that is about as much news as there really is to go over. I will say to everyone that is heading out to SOT Fest, please be safe. Please take care of yourself. They did announce that there is going to be a title for folks who are going, called the SOT Fest Superstar, I think is what it's called. Actually, I should probably take a quick look here. It is called the SOT Fest Superstar. It is a title that is going to be awarded to anyone who came to celebrate Sea of Thieves' piracy at the SOT Fest. As someone who's not been able to go the last few years, or last couple years, I guess at this point, it's a shame that this wasn't something that happened every single year, but at the same time, I have a nice Letterman jacket that has the year that I went for SOT Fest, and I went the first 2 years. And then after that, it was just not in the cards for me, but I do know that Davram's going to be heading out that way. I know that he's going to be doing a podcast there for Pirate Talk Radio, and that should be fun. That should be a good time. So I'm hoping that everything goes well. The community needs a win. They need to have a good time and not have to worry about bad actors in the community. But I'm just going to hope at this case that is something that's going to happen there. But yeah, I know they've been working hard on that, and that it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money to kind of put something like that together. So, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. But for all intents and purposes, I just hope that SOT Fest is a win for the community, because the community deserves it for taking care of stuff. I know there's already issues with the controller that they were selling. They already had to go back to what's it called? Extreme Consoles to basically redo the entire controller, because it was called out that the design that they used was actually AI, and that was not something that SOT Fest was aware of or recognized. So they actually had MIDI Seabird do a quick Sea of Thieves controller design, and that is the one that's available on Extreme Consoles. So I'm ready for Rare to get a win. I'm ready for Rare to get like some positive news, stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll have to see how things are going. So I think that is going to do it. This was episode 423. I don't know where the 8 came from. That was kind of wild there. But again, if you guys don't know, I'm going to 425. I am going to be wrapping up the podcast. It is the end of an era for me. I have been unfortunately swamped with work and swamped with doing stuff for the expansion pass. I'm already taking time this weekend to do this. That is going to be for something that is coming later on this week that I can't talk about, but hopefully if you guys are keeping an eye on the expansion pass, you'll be able to see the work that I put in there. Like I mentioned earlier, I just got done doing a video on the Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis game that it's going to be coming out in February of next year, but I got to play it at Summer Games Fest. It was amazing. That's going to be a fun game. I hope that game lands as well as I enjoyed it. But there's another game that I'm doing a review for that's going to be embargoed for later this month, that I will definitely be sharing around on the Keelhauled Discord, but I think a lot of folks are going to be interested in. But yeah, that's something that I'm working on now. But outside of that, we've got 2 more episodes, and I'm going to be dropping anchor and retiring from Keelhauled podcast. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. And yeah, I will talk to you all next week. So pirates, with that, thank you. I love you. And I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.